I told you about someone who will be advising us on how to make our applications, how to look for jobs during this time, and even cutting across your career life. And he will also be talking to us about where to look for these job opportunities. It could be a tiring job, but his name is Wycliffe Osoro, and he'll be shedding some light on how to do this. Listening. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Osoro, and kindly give us some of the requirements that employers look for before calling someone for an interview.
Okay, great. Thanks for this opportunity, and I'll just be taking you through what I believe is important for candidates to look at before they make an application. So as employers, what is it that we're going to be looking at before we call a candidate for an interview? The first thing that I would say that we'll be looking at, of course, is your CV. So we've put out the advert, and you are expected to apply and also have your CV. So we'll be looking at two things, the application letter and your CV. So your application letter needs to be precise and to the point. I think to just point out what are the things that need to be in the letter. The first thing is really expressing your interest for the position that we have advertised. The second thing is really giving a brief background of your education and professional qualifications. And then the third part I would say is you need to express what is your experience that is relevant to the position that you're applying for. And finally, what it is that you feel you will bring to the table for that particular role. On the CV, it's very important that, one, it is a neat-looking document, well-organized. And when I'm looking at it being well-organized, it needs to be in a chronological manner. So what you're doing from the current position that you are all the way to the past. So not in reverse order. I see some CVs where it is written the last job that someone did, probably if you're looking at from 2010 to 2020, they put the 2010 job first, so it gets a bit lost. So chronologically in reverse order.
Okay, so from the latest to the oldest, let's just put it.
Yes, exactly. So that's what you need to do. The other thing that I'll be looking at in a CV is, of course, I do not expect CVs to be very wordy. I always say try as much as possible to maintain your CV to less than 3 pages. And 4 pages at a maximum. What are you looking at expressing in your CV? The jobs that you've held previously, if you've been working, and the achievements. So a lot of times I see people copy and paste job descriptions into CVs. That is not a CV, because the simple thing is that if someone else holds that job and copies and pastes the same job description, and you do that, how will I tell the difference between you and the other candidate? The difference comes in the achievements that the individual is able to express. Finally, indicate your educational qualifications. It's important if you have not completed something, say, for example, you're pursuing a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, that you clearly indicate that that is in progress. And not just indicate it there, and yet you have not been able to achieve that particular qualification.
All right.
Referees are important if they are asked for by the employer. So if in the advert they ask for referees, you need to include that, and the referees that they've expressed, if it's your last manager, that you need to put in on that CV. So basically, a well-structured CV and a well-structured application letter puts your foot in the door. So you need to be short and precise. I always say that recruiters have a very short time to look at many applications. So the shorter you are in expressing what is required, the higher your chances of getting called for the interview.
All right, I like that. And there is this one part of the CV that most of us grew up knowing, where we include our age, our date of birth, and also our religion. Please talk to us about that.
Okay, I always say that personal biodata, I would avoid having it in the CV. Your name is enough, and contact details. And contact details, by that I mean, please ensure that you have your email contact and phone contact on the CV, and also on the application letter. there are instances where these documents get printed, and then it becomes difficult for then people to get in touch with you if you did not include, because sometimes we assume I've sent it by email, but sometimes we assume that someone will be able to get back in touch with you by email. So in terms of personal details of ID number, date of birth, marital status, I always say it's better off for you to avoid having that on the CV, because also you do not want to have any prejudice against age in terms of your marital status. I think those are not important issues at the point at which you are applying for the job. So you're better off leaving them off your CV.
And what about personal social media pages? Do they also play a role when it comes to whether or not you can get a job opportunity?
Yes, I look at personal social media pages in two ways. So it's an opportunity for you to either sell yourself or have it becoming your career stopper. So in terms of social media, it's important that you have social media pages that that sort of express who you are, but you want the information that is going out on your social media pages to be positive information. I always say pick a theme if you'd want your social media, and different social medias are used for different things. So if you'd want your social media pages to either focus on an interest that you have, say for example you're interested in cooking, your social media pages indicating that that's something that's good. If you're interested in and if it's on LinkedIn, there are particular articles you want to write, it's important to do that. If it's a family setup and sort of that you want to show maybe that some games that you're interested in, so there's a theme in terms of someone can be able to sort of profile you and know what it is that are your interests. One thing that I would want people to avoid on their social media pages is negativity. I always say you don't have to post and retweet or things that have been posted by others just to have them on your media pages, because in as much as they're not your opinion, the fact that you put them on your page sort of feels that you subscribe to what it is that is on that page. So try as much as possible to avoid negativity, because when organizations, there are specific organizations that would look and are very keen on their external presence, and they would not want to pick an employee who is going to come and damage their brand. So they'll be looking at that. And of course, when you're in those organizations, they have social media policies and guidelines on what it is that you can post and not post as their employee. So you just want to have your pages having a lot of positive information, and people can be able to pick up what interests you have in your social media pages.
All right. And maybe, you know, right now people are at home and maybe there's someone who's looking for a job. So where do we look for these jobs? Where are they found?
Okay. I think when you're looking for a job, there's very many places that you can find jobs. And there's the traditional newspaper adverts where you'll get any jobs advertised. That's one of the places. The job sites that I would say are credible, that you can be able to get those applications. And how do you tell a credible job site? I think it's important. I'll not necessarily name names of credible job sites, but say what are the things that you would want to know about a credible job site. So sometimes look at the role that they've advertised and the organization. The thing that I always say is look at the bottom and say, where are you directing this application? Is that application being directed directly to the organization, or is it going to a third party? And if it's a third party, are you clear to see that they are actually allowed to act on behalf of the employer? So when you look at such information, also cross-check with the employer's page. So look at the employer's website and see, do they have such openings in their website? So a lot of times you'll find is job websites that sort of pull out jobs that have been posted in different employer websites to either drive traffic to their websites. It's important for you to just cross-check and see that does actually check out. Another thing that you need to be careful on is any job sites that tend to ask for money probably are not genuine. I've seen instances where even employers have pages that have been duplicated and purport to be that employer's page. Just simply pick up a phone call, go to the directory or the online and find out the contacts of that organization. Make a call to that organization and find out if they have any opportunities that they have posted on a particular site. So it's important to do that. I mean, one good place to look at is LinkedIn. LinkedIn, of course, is one of the world's largest sort of professional networks, and you can be able to get a lot from there. But locally, there are also quite a number of good websites that you can be able to get the jobs from. The other thing is talk to your networks. I always say I believe the networks are very important. The people who you interact with are able to guide you on what jobs are there. During this time of the pandemic, a lot of calls have been happening, Zoom calls within professional networks that you may belong to. I think that's an opportunity to also reach out to the people who are within those networks and listen to what it is that they are recruiting for. So the organizations that are recruiting even this time when there's a depressed economy, but I think you just need to look in the right place.
Okay. Well, and before I let you go, Mr. Osoro, kindly tell us some of the mistakes that people do, maybe knowingly or unknowingly, when maybe looking for a job or even during the interview process.
Okay. That's a whole long discussion, but I'll start with the application process.
Yes.
And what mistakes I feel sometimes people make. The first and greatest mistake that I see is applying for jobs that you do not meet the qualifications. So a lot of times we have recruiters having to deal with hundreds and hundreds of applications that do not meet the specific requirements for the job. So I think as much as possible, try and apply for jobs that do meet your specification. There's no need for someone who's coming straight out of campus applying for a director's position in an organization. I think honestly it is a waste of time, and what would happen is that you will end up stressing yourself by increasing the number of jobs that you have applied to that you will not get a response. So that's one of the things. Just try as much as possible to apply for jobs that are within your qualification range. Of course, if you meet the minimum requirements, but you don't have one of the desired requirements, please do apply. That should not stop you. But those that are mandatory requirements, please ensure that you meet them. Another thing that mistakes people do is selling yourself short. I started off by talking about the CV, not having your achievements on the CV and just putting role descriptions on the CV. That is one of the mistakes that people do when applying for jobs. The other thing is lying on the CV. So I've seen people who lie on the CV by indicating jobs that they have not done or working for organizations. That is something that we're keen on as HR professionals and recruiters on understanding, because you have interacted with a lot of organizations and you know what positions are in those organizations. Yeah. So sometimes people do lie on their CV, and that's a big, big mistake. Another mistake people do when applying for jobs is canvassing. So when a job advertisement has been put out, reaching out to people within the organization who are in charge of the process and trying to get them to give you a favorable push into the process. I think that is something that people need to avoid as much as possible. Those are the mistakes that I would say really in terms of applying. In terms of the interview, very quickly, I think one of the largest or the greatest mistakes is failing to prepare for the interview. So a lot of people walk into interviews and assume that they will be able to just sail through. So you need to prepare. What do you need to prepare? You need to prepare and understand the organization that you're going to interview for. You need to in your preparation, have sort of looked at what are your past achievements. So it's sort of prepping yourself, and take the advantage of working with people who you do, either your friends, your relatives, to sort of have a mock interview and with questions and trying to respond so that you're okay. The other mistake that I see during interviews is not answering the question that you have been asked during the interview. A lot of times candidates do come into the interview prepared to answer specific questions. So when a question is asked that's not that specific question that you have prepared for, you find candidates trying to sort of go around and answer that question that was not asked. So that's another big mistake that people do have. Another mistake during the interview is lack of confidence, where you start sounding so desperate that, if I don't get this job, my life is going to end. And, it comes off on the people who are in the interview panel. So you need to have a bit of confidence when you're interviewing, that you articulate what is required. Lastly, I think expression in terms of language. I've been in interviews where people are not able to express themselves coherently in one language. So either you come into the interview and you're not able to speak in English, or if the interview is in Kiswahili, you need to be able to express yourself coherently during the interview.
Wow.
And finally, there's one that I also think that it should be avoided at all costs, where the candidate starts taking notes during the interview. I think it's something that it causes a bit of a distraction to the panelists, and they are wondering whether they should give you time to take notes or ask questions. So just my advice is, when anyone is going for interviews, relax, prepare well, sleep early, go there in good time so that you're not getting lost and getting late. Of course, that's one of the problems with interviews and the mistakes, coming late for the interview because you didn't do sort of a reconnaissance to understand how much time it will take you to get to the location of the interview. I could go on, and I think there's so many things.
But unfortunately, we have to end this here. But thank you so very much for the good information that you've given us today. I'm sure someone somewhere has learned a lot, myself included.
Okay, thank you very much. It was nice speaking to you, and have a lovely afternoon.
Right. Well, that has been Wycliffe Osoro, a HR consultant, and he was telling us that, the market is so wide. We just need to put our facts straight. And he also said about people lying in their CVs. That is one thing that we should be avoiding totally, to make sure that at least we get that job.